Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to the trashy Vaughn Manor, where it's Wednesday, which means it's Epic Comic Book Wednesday. Every Wednesday, I'll talk about a certain comic book, graphic novel, or comic book subject. Steve Donoghue, on his channel that isn't as trashy as mine, but wants to be, will talk about that same comic book, graphic novel, or comic book subject. It is our world's finest team-up that we do once a week. And it is also Garbogust, a month devoted to trashy fiction. Created by Criminali, Garbogust is a month-long reading event devoted to reading trash. And so I am joined today by the trashiest friend I know, Roger, and we will talk about the first in a series of trashy Marvel comics. Steve Donoghue, he's gonna love this month, because every month just gets better and better. So, we're starting off this month with tough guy, Frank Castle, the Punisher. We're going to be talking about this epic collection. This is the Punisher Circle of Blood. It's the Punisher Epic Collection Volume 2. For some inexplicable reason, Marvel has not yet come out with a Punisher Volume 1. It doesn't make any sense that they haven't yet, but they haven't yet. So here we are with the Punisher Volume 2. And I can understand why they came out with this one first, because Circle of Blood was the miniseries which made the Punisher super popular. Came out in the 80s. This collects Punisher comic books from 1986 to 1988. There's some great stuff in this epic collection. There's some not so great stuff in this epic collection. It's a pretty mixed bag, this one, so let's talk about it. First of all, the Punisher was a character that was created to be a Spider-Man villain. But what this character is, and why it makes it here onto Garbogust, is because basically the Punisher is Mac Bolan, or he's an awful lot like Mac Bolan. Mac Bolan, the character which debuted in the Executioner series. Mac Bolan was the Executioner. And so Mac Bolan had an origin story an awful lot like the Punisher's, where his family was killed because of the mafia, and so he decided to take revenge, and more revenge, and more revenge after that, and he's still getting revenge after all these years. He just kept on getting revenge, and killing, and shooting so many people. That's what he did, Mac Bolan the Executioner. And basically, that's the Punisher. Only the Punisher's got this fancier outfit with the big skull. So, yeah. The Punisher was, I suspect, modeled on Mac Bolan. Certainly Mac Bolan was an influence, because basically the Punisher is a men's adventure character. Men's adventure pulpy paperbacks were around for a long, long, long time. Still are around, actually, in their own way. And the Punisher is that kind of character. Frank Castle, whose family were murdered by the mob, and so he's going to get revenge no matter what the cost, using all of his military skills to be a murderous vigilante who has tons of guns and just loves to shoot people. And so this collects the miniseries Circle of Blood, which, like I said, made Punisher the popular character that he was. Now, he was already around. He was a Spider-Man villain, and he had a short-lived series of his own in a black and white magazine, although I'm forgetting the title. I would remember if Marvel ever would come out with a Volume 1 Epic Collection. Gee, that would be nice, but this starts off with this. I mean, just look at that. That is awesome. So this has a series that's drawn by Mike Zeck, and Stephen Grant is the writer. Now, Mike Zeck, he's a really, really good artist, but if you rush him, he tends to not be so good. So he's very inconsistent. Sometimes he does great work, sometimes not so good. And you really see that in Circle of Blood. In the beginning, the first few issues were great, and then they were terrible. It went great to terrible in one 4-issue miniseries that inexplicably became a 5-issue miniseries. It was all along, they were saying 4 issues, and then all of a sudden, oh, we were just kidding, it's going to be 5 issues. So in this 4 to 5 issue series, Zek went from great to terrible, and this series went from great to not so great. But the covers were amazing and really sold the series. And this first issue, where Mac Bolan is in prison and has to fight off all of these criminals that he put in prison, basically, the artwork is great, and this issue is great. The first issue of this miniseries is just magnificent. I mean, the whole way through, the artwork is moody, it's exciting, it's beautifully drawn. Everything about it, I mean, just look at that. It's just so great. And so, by the end of this series, Mac Bolan, Frank Castle, see, I'm even calling him Mac Bolan. Frank Castle is released from prison by these mysterious men who, for reasons of their own, want him to be the Punisher. And he says, fine, I'll go out and be the Punisher again. I got some punishing to do. He's got some work to do, this guy. And so you've got all of these subplots which show up. Here's the second issue. Again, great cover. All of these issues have great covers. And the second issue, again, exciting, great stuff. Really good stuff in the second issue, and it kind of continues that way, and the story is a complete men's adventure paperback story. It's just what you want it to be. Really, really good. All kinds of exciting violence. Mac Bolan's shooting people. Got the third issue here with this magnificent cover there. And it's still holding up pretty well. But then, let's see if I can find, am I on the 4th issue now? Yeah, here we go. So, number 4 in a 4-issue limited series, it says that on the cover, right? Number 4 in a 4-issue limited series. So you think, hey, this has got to be the conclusion of this exciting story. And what you get is an issue that Zek doesn't do the whole thing. I think he did some of it, and some other artists kind of picked up the slack. But noticeably, the artwork is much worse. It's not god-awful, but it's not great. You can kind of tell that he's rushing. And then you get a surprise at the end of the issue when, you know, he's knocked out and there's going to be a next issue, which surprises you because the cover said 4 in a 4-issue limited series. But here you do. You get a 5th issue. And once you read it, you're like, damn, I wish this issue never came out and that it was only a 4-issue limited series, because this is plotted by Stephen Grant. Joe Duffy does the script. Mike Vosberg does the layouts. John Beatty does the finishes. So it's kind of a production, this thing, and it is bad. This issue is just, it's badly drawn. I don't know if they were just rushing. I don't know the story behind this issue. Some of you probably do. But this issue is just crap. I mean, what a miserable way to finish off a series that started off so good. I mean, yeah, that's a dog right there. It's kind of hard to tell that that is a dog because it's drawn so poorly. But yeah, there's a dog in this. A poorly drawn dog. And it does end off, the very end of it is kind of cool. He walks off in the rain, but altogether, a pretty lackluster finish to an exciting beginning. But this epic collection continues with the Punisher's own series. That miniseries was popular enough that Punisher got his own series and became more and more of a popular character. He became very popular in the latter half of the 1980s and into the 1990s. Now this is awesome because we got a Mike Baron script, and Klaus Johnson doing the artwork. And I really liked him on The Punisher. He was excellent. And the first few issues of The Punisher were really entertaining. Again, very stylized art, but it works. And stories that, again, are straight out of a men's adventure pulp paperback. I mean, just good stuff. The stuff you want to see. Mac Bolan getting into scrapes. And the next few issues are pretty good. But then the quality goes down, in my opinion. Johnson leaves the book, and we get some other artists. And one of the other artists that you get, let me see if I can get to the cover of this. I'll get there. One of the other artists that you get is an artist called Whilce Portacio. Again, I can't pronounce anything. But his version of the Punisher, I feel, is just not very good. He's not a particularly good artist in my mind. And so you get some issues with the Punisher with some questionable anatomy. But I think he was reasonably popular, despite my personal opinions on the artwork. It crosses over, though, with Daredevil. And the Daredevil issues were illustrated by John Romita Jr. And his work is just so much better in those Daredevil issues that you kind of wish that he had drawn the Punisher instead. You get this great fight with Daredevil and the Punisher, which was excellent. I'm glad they included that. But probably one of the better things that they included is that they included the graphic novel The Punisher Assassin's Guild by Joe Duffy, George Zaffino, and Julie Michael. But it was an excellent graphic novel. The Punisher is the kind of character that lends himself very well to like a single graphic novel adventure, which is what this is. And so some of the Punisher epic collections are including the Punisher graphic novels that were published in the 80s and the 90s. Because there were a few of them. Because like I said, he fits right into that kind of one-shot kind of storytelling very well. And this is actually a pretty well-done graphic novel. It could be, aside from the first few issues of Circle of Blood, it could be the high point of this epic collection. It's really, really cool. And it's worth picking up the epic collection just for this final story all on its own. I mean, look at the Punisher there. He is nuts, this guy. You don't want to mess. You don't want to mess with the Punisher. So yeah, The Punisher, Epic Collection, Volume 2, Circle of Blood. Now, altogether, I liked it, but there's a lot of stuff in here that isn't so great. And the Punisher is inherently kind of a trashy character in a good way. That's not to say that it's bad. Just, you know, kind of trashy. So, yeah, The Punisher. And poor Steve Donoghue, this is literally as good as it's going to get, because every week on Epic Comic Book Wednesday, our comics are going to get trashier and trashier and trashier. Okay, guys, that's all for this trashy Epic Comic Book Wednesday. Myself, Roger, we will catch you next time.